happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing me about why did Nancy Pelosi say, why did someone, and I thought it'd be a real distraction.
That was President Joe Biden on CBS News just moments ago, addressing his decision to end his reelection bid. While he and Vice President Harris may no longer be running mates, they still have a country to run. They're still governing partners, and they are headed to Maryland this week for a White House event that's aimed at highlighting the administration's efforts to lower costs for the American people. Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman and member of the House Armed Services Committee, Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey. Greetings.
Congresswoman, it's good to see you again. Let's focus on the governing aspect of this, because the politics is the politics, and we all know how that, campaigns are for that. But to Simone's point, the president finds himself having to still govern the country. What type of policy initiatives do you think Democrats should be helping and assisting the administration with in the remaining months of his term to seal in that legacy of accomplishment that we've already seen, from the CHIPS Act to infrastructure to even bringing inflation down from 10% to 3%. There's still some runway, even though you're in a house of crazy, given with how the Republicans are running the joint. But there's still some initiatives that can be leveled up by this administration with the help of Democrats in the House. What would some of those be in your view?
So, first of all, as you sort of alluded to, we have difficulty just doing sort of the day-to-day business with this majority in the House. And quite frankly, passing our budget, keeping the government open is our first priority. Unfortunately, that's going to be, we think, somewhat difficult over the next couple months. But we also do have to cement in some of the things that the president did. And any way we can do that, making sure that the infrastructure law that we put into place with the Biden administration, that we make sure we're continuing to fund that, continuing to fix our crumbling roads and bridges. I would love to see us address housing, workforce housing, making sure that middle-class families have access to affordable housing. We know that's a crisis across the country, and continuing to bring costs down for families. That's what I think we should be laser focused on, and I'm sure the president is.
It's been interesting, too, Congresswoman, to hear Vice President Harris out on the stump talking about that affordability crisis, both in terms of housing, as you referenced, also prices at the grocery store, as a matter of corporate greed. One of the attacks that you have the Trump-Vance campaign launching against the Harris-Wells campaign, as you well know, is about the governor's record of service. I want you to take a listen to what J.D. Vance had to say, and then you and I will talk about it on the other side.
Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not.
Congressman, as a Navy pilot yourself, as someone who serves on the Armed Services Committee, what is your response to that attack?
It's so incredibly offensive. This just takes me back to when I finished my service overseas. I had just come back to the United States after my final tour, and the swift boat attacks against John Kerry launched shortly thereafter, and I was appalled. I've known people who were in boats in Vietnam. They had the bullet scars to prove it. That's difficult duty. And to be attacked on that honorable service, knowing, for example, people like Trump avoided service by going to his dad's doctor to be falsely diagnosed with bone spurs to get out of service. So knowing that someone had honorably served in difficult times in Vietnam, and then was attacked for it, was so offensive to me. And to see the same guy, the same La Vida guy, now launching these same attacks behind a lot of these same attacks against veterans, it's like the Republican Party has become a one-trick pony in these presidential campaigns, just attacking veterans. We saw, of course, Trump constantly attacking John McCain, a real hero too many of us veterans of the Vietnam War. We've seen the attacks by Trump as veterans being suckers and losers. But to now see this new generation of Republicans attacking service members, attacking service, like J.D. Vance, is incredibly offensive, especially because Vance is a veteran himself. So I have to say, it really enrages me, especially because not only did we saw Waltz joining at 17, serving for 20 years. I joined at 18. Now my 18-year-old daughter is in the Navy. And so to see these attacks on service members and attacks on veterans, it's just something that I cannot believe they are launching this again, and I think everybody should be offended by it.
Congresswoman, it strikes me that the Trump campaign, Donald Trump himself and J.D. Vance, seem to be doing a very good job trying to assert what they are against. I guess they're against childless women or women who did not birth children themselves, even if they are step parents, because J.D. Vance apologized to the cats, but not the ladies he was talking about. It seems to me that they are against, folks being able to make their own decisions about their own bodies. They're against, in some respects, they're attacking Tim Walz. They're talking specifically about his record as governor, but also, as we just discussed, his military service. But they haven't yet been able to dictate to us what they are in fact for. And I'm wondering how that's playing in your district. You are what would be considered a frontline member in New Jersey. Just what are you hearing from your constituents about the state of the race at this point? You've got the Harris-Walz campaign being very clear about what they are for and their vision for the future. And then you have Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. It sounds to me really like talking about what they are against, and I haven't yet to see a positive vision, but I have heard a lot about retribution.
Sure. On the ground, there is an incredible amount of excitement, like other congressional candidates across my state. We're receiving hundreds of phone calls of people who want to get engaged, want to support the Harris-Walz ticket, canvassing and phone banking, and just signing other people up to vote. So that has been just incredibly refreshing to have this kind of excitement on the ground, because I'll tell you, we in New Jersey know exactly what Trump is for. He's for Putin. He's for President for Life, Xi and Communist China. He's for autocrats and dictators. He's for staying in office despite a Democratic election that he lost. And so people in New Jersey know the threat he faces. And beyond that, they know the opportunity that the Harris-Walz campaign presents to our state and to our country. An idea of our future that is so in line with our values. I always say that Vice President Harris just embodies the American dream, embodies the possibilities open in this country to people, if that is the path we take. And I can tell you, New Jersey, that is exactly the path we want this country to be on.
So, Governor, excuse me, my bad.
It's the second time you've done that today, sir.
My bad, Congresswoman. I'm hearing from the peeps on the ground in your neighborhood that there could be a future gubernatorial campaign in your future, and that's interesting. Coming in line with my good friend Christine Todd Whitman as the first woman governor. You'd be the first Democratic woman governor in the state. Anything you want to share with us today on that front, Congresswoman?
Well, yeah. So as you've probably heard, I am focused on 2024, making sure that we have I'll do the Freudian slip you did, Vice President Harris as our next president, and making sure she gets across the finish line. I want to make sure we get good Democrats up and down the ticket. We have got to flip the House of Representatives to make sure we can continue on the agenda we have of driving down costs for American families. And then, yes, in 25, I am strongly considering running for governor here in New Jersey. But we all have to get through 24 first.
All right. There it is. One eye on the prize and the other on another prize. Very good.
Well, that's the military veteran in me, right? Always concentrating. They say, don't just look for your current job, look for the future, look to where you need to get to in your next job. So we're constantly focused on how we can serve people here in New Jersey better. So